The IDA, the International Development Association, was formed in the year 1960. The IBRD, it is commonly known as the World Bank, and it was the result of Bretton Woods Conference. This IMF has reserves of all the currencies of all the member countries, and if any one country wants to borrow, it can borrow the currencies of other nations. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. I welcome you all to this session. In this session, we will be having a discussion on the World Bank. As you all know, the First and the Second World War, they created lot of chaos all over the world. The First World War and the Second World War, there we saw lot of massive destruction of the almost all the infrastructure all over the world, and because of which they gave rise to three important institutions, that is the IMF, the ITO, and the International Bank for Reconstruction. So this International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, it is also called as the World Bank. Now let us have a look into what this holds for us. Now, the World Bank, or it is also called as the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. So, the IBRD, it is commonly known as the World Bank, and it was the result of Bretton Woods Conference. So, if you can recall, in my previous session, I had made a reference to the Bretton Woods session, which was held because of all the nations came together to reconstruct the entire world, and they came to a conclusion that three institutions had to be set up, that is the International Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, and International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, so also popularly known as the World Bank. Now, what are the objectives of setting up this World Bank? To aid the task of reconstruction of the war-affected economies of Europe. So, the main objective of setting up the World Bank was for the task of reconstruction. So, we could see that there was a lot of massive destruction all around the world, and most of the infrastructure was gone because of this war. And it was the duty of the World Bank to help in reconstruction of the economies. So, all those economies which were affected by war, so this World Bank had to help them to stand up on their own feet. Then, the assist in the development of the underdeveloped nations of the world. So, this World Bank was also established with the main objective of assisting the development of the underdeveloped nations, that is the developing nations and the underdeveloped nations. So, they had to get some help from the World Bank. Then, the next objective is, it realized that by investing more and more in these countries, especially in the social sectors like health and education, it could bring about needed social and economic transformations of the developing countries. So, the meeting which was held at Bretton Woods, it came to the conclusion that by investing more and more in countries of the underdeveloped worlds, or in almost all the war-torn nations, they could bring about lot of development, especially in the social sectors like health and education. So, if you make a good investment in health and education, it could bring about the needed social and economic transformations of the developing countries. Now, in the developing countries, people are poor, the people don't have any money for education, and they don't have any money to buy food also, and there is no health system also. So, the next objective of this World Bank is, it realized that by investing more and more in these countries, especially in the social sectors like health and education, it could bring about the needed social and economic transformation of the developing countries. So, we should understand that the World Bank was set up for the development of the developing nations. Now, as you all know, the most of the underdeveloped nations, poverty is rampant. People are very poor. They don't have facilities for education, they don't have healthcare facilities, and they don't have any money for education also. So, the main aim of setting up the World Bank was to see that they invest in the health and education sector so that they could bring about the much needed social and economic transformation. So when people are educated, slowly they come into the mainstream, that is, they start earning money and then they can come to the mainstream. So this was the main objective of setting up of the World Bank. Then the next objective is to give shape to this investment aspect in the underdeveloped nations. The IDA, the International Development Association, was formed in the year 1960. So, in order to help the underdeveloped nations of the world, they set up the International Development Association, which made an investment in the health sector and the education sector of the underdeveloped countries. Then, the main objective underlying the setting up the IIDA has been to provide loans on concessional terms and conditions to those countries whose per capita incomes are below a critical level. So, the objective of setting up the IDA, that is the International Development Association, was to provide loans to the at concessional rates to those countries whose per capita income is below the critical level. So, if they have extremely low per capita income, then such countries could avail the loan facilities from the International Development Association for investment in the health sector and as well as the education sector. Then next, concessional terms and conditions. Now, what were the concessions given by the IDA or the IBRD for the other countries? The first one is repayment is much longer than the repayment period of IBRD. So, when they set up the International Development Association, so it gave more concession to the countries which borrowed loans from the IDA than the IBRD, because in the IDA they gave the repayment period was much longer than what was given by the IBRD. Then second one is the borrowing nation need not pay any interest on the borrowed amount. So it was an interest-free loan which was extended to these underdeveloped nations. So thus provide interest-free long-term loans to the poor nations. So they also provide loans, but these carry interest charged on commercial basis. But whatever the World Bank or the International Bank for Reconstruction, whatever loans they are giving, they are charging interest at the commercial basis. Whatever the interest is charged, the same interest is charged by the World Bank, whereas the International Development Association, they don't charge any interest at all, and moreover they give a longer repayment period. Then the IMF, the next important institution set up after the Bretton Woods Conference is the IMF, or it is also called as the International Monetary Fund. So it is the second international organization next to the World Bank. It came into existence in 1945. It has its headquarters located in Washington, D.C. So in 2005, it had 191 countries as its members. Now, this IMF, it is also a result of the Bretton Woods Conference, and it came into existence in the year 1945. It has its head office in Washington, D.C., and almost there are 191 countries in its membership. Now, let us have more information about this IMF. So, the major idea underlying the setting up of IMF is to evolve an orderly international monetary system, that is, a facilitating system of international payments and adjustments in exchange rates among national currencies. So, the main aim of having this International Monetary Fund was to have an international monetary system which could facilitate the system of international payments and adjustments in exchange rates among national currencies. As you all know that whenever there is a trade between two countries, it will be always in the basis of foreign exchange, and this foreign exchange rate keeps on fluctuating, and there should be somebody to facilitate the payment of foreign exchange, and International Monetary Fund was one such organization which facilitated the international payments and adjustments. Then the major idea underlying the setting up of the IMF is to evolve an orderly international monetary system, that is facilitating system of international payments and adjustments in exchange rates among national currencies. So whatever the exchange rate between currencies, so that would be fixed by the IMF. Then to promote international monetary cooperation through a permanent institution. Then let us have a look at what were the major objectives of the IMF. So first one is to promote international monetary cooperation through a permanent institution. IMF is a permanent institution, and through this institution they were making international payments. Then to facilitate expansion of balanced growth of international trade and to contribute thereby to the promotion and maintenance of high levels of employment and real income. So because of the IMF, they wanted to facilitate the expansion of balanced growth of international trade. So it wanted to encourage a balanced growth of international trade and thereby contribute to the promotion and maintenance of high levels of employment and real income. So with the help of promoting the international trade, they wanted to promote the high levels of employment as well as guarantee high income to the people of that particular country. Then the major objectives of IMF include to promote exchange stability with the view to maintain orderly exchange arrangements among member countries. So the main other objectives of IMF is to promote exchange stability with a view to maintain orderly exchange arrangements among member countries. So all the member countries who are members of the IMF, so they will have a exchange stability rate through which they can have orderly payments. Then to assist in the establishment of multilateral system of payments in respect of current transactions between the members. So the IMF is the facilitator for multilateral system of payments between the members of the organization. Then next let us look into what are the functions of the IMF. So it acts as the short-term credit institution. So IMF extends credits to its member countries. Then it provides machinery for orderly adjustment of exchange rates. So since the IMF is the facilitator for the foreign exchange, it will be providing machinery for adjustment of exchange rates also. Then next is it acts as a reservoir of currencies of all the member countries from which a borrower nation can borrow the currency of other nations. So this IMF has reserves of all the currencies of all the member countries, and if any one country wants to borrow, it can borrow the currencies of other nations. Then next function of IMF is it acts as a lending institution of foreign currency and current transaction. So it also acts as a lending institution of foreign currency and also it provides credit for the current transactions also. The next one is determining the value of a country's currency and altering it if needed so as to bring about an orderly exchange of adjustment of exchange rate of member countries. So it with the IMF is the body which will decide the value of the country's currency. So what is the value of each country's currency? That will be decided, and it will also help in adjustment of the exchange rate of member countries. So there are already 191 members and all the members will have the exchange rate which will be decided by the IMF and providing machinery for international consultations. So for international consultations, so it will provide all the necessity arrangements for that. Then, so with this we come to the end of this session on World Bank and IMF. Hope you have all understood it. Thank you.